ده انت فين يا عم؟ انا قلت لك هقعد ادوخ عليك. ممكن تخليك جنبي عشان انا مش عايز اضربك برضه.
Did you turn off the mics? Like the switch for the receiver?
Mina. gonna make my life easier, to be honest. You can send it to me messages. Hey, Christy. لا دي العيلة كلها هنا بقى. ماشي ماشي. Congratulations on your Model Y. Model Y. لا يعني مش كده قصدي. Michael, do you have a presentation? You have a presentation? I think Myrna sent me a presentation already. Hey, that's the CSUB thing.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, it is. طب ابعتها لك ازاي؟ Oh, you have iMac. Perfect. Perfect. Copy link.
He's not presenting? I'm just getting ready.
I sent to you. Let me know. Yeah, you got it. Okay. You, you. Well, I did bio and aerospace, so I included those.
No, computer science.
No. I coded some
You
stuff.
told me to talk about computer science. So I was like,
So talking about, I just very briefly go over some statistics, code, stuff like that. Different kinds of engineering, what it takes to be an engineer,
It kept saying it doesn't work.
before and after college.
did you graduate, right? Yeah, right?
It kept saying it wouldn't connect.
Excel sheets. Wait, don't say that. I'm there to
Bro, this dude literally just like
Okay.
get a fan, get a
Okay, maybe yeah, you should go at the end so you can leave a positive note. They know. Mama Baba gonna go like midnight. They know. Yeah. Here, should I change the time? Oh, I don't always strike that balance of like they know it's a joke, so maybe.
This is a joke.
It's actually not. Nervous laughing, but.
Everybody have a seat. Okay, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, one God, amen. Thank you for you coming. First career day in Pope Carolus. I'm going to explain very quick what we're going to do and what not. And then because of time of some distinguished guest, we have to start immediately. So what's the purpose of this day is to make you guys understand that there is more important thing in life rather than your phone. Life is not all about money. We're not here to talk about money, but you might ask a question to know what this career will lead you to and whatnot. But all the people that I'm going to stand in here, there is 7 of them, they're going to tell you how much was it hard to establish this career. And in order for you to follow their footsteps, they're all like they were like you in their age. Some of them, I wasn't expecting them to do anything, but they surprised me. And she's laughing right now, so. No, I'm serious, because we get distracted, but my point here is to tell you that you need to pay back to your church, you need to pay back to your society. If you think that being a YouTuber or whatever is going to pay you back, you're at fault. I'm sorry to say that. It's hard to do something good with your life and for other people. That's why we're trying to achieve. So we have a panel of 7 distinguished people from all professions. I'm going to talk to you for 10 to 15 minutes. And then after that, all the talks is done, we're going to go ahead and put you in some rooms with whatever you're interested in. So like for this room to be medicine, pharmacy, dentist, vets, CPAs and whatnot. So if you're interested in more than one career, you can go and ask a question in there. If you don't have any question and you have a general question to the panel or anything like that while we're sitting in here, you're more than welcome, but we don't want to waste their times because they have some stuff to do too, okay? So we're gonna start with Dr. Mark Malik. Dr. Mark Malik, I know him for years. I can call him my kid if he would be happy with this. I don't think he would be happy with it. He's an MD. He works for public health a lot. He works for jail and all this stuff. So if you're interested in this, he can tell you how to get there. So he's going to have a 10 to 15 minutes, and then he has to leave because he has some family function. And then Dr. Henry Krollos, one of our servants here, is going to be coming to answer your question later. So we start with Dr. Malik, and we really thank all the panel for coming and taking the time to help us with, okay? Thank you.
There, that's on. Hi, good morning, everyone. So, I don't like to be really formal, especially in this kind of talk, but I want you guys to be able to ask questions if there's something I forget, or even as I'm going along, if there's something you want to hear. So I'm going to cover a few different things because I've kind of worked in different fields in medicine and public health, so I want to tell you guys about all of that. First of all, I'm really glad that I heard there's junior high kids here. Who's junior high? I'm really glad, because if you want to think about medicine, but really any of these careers, it starts at your age. It's actually good that you're here. You're not too early. The habits that you develop when you're studying and doing your homework and just even organizing your stuff. I get on my kids all the time. I have one of them. She can't find half of her stuff half the time. And it's always all over the place. So little things like that, I see adults who still have those habits, even professionals, and they make mistakes. So these little things and these little habits are really important. In high school, it kind of starts even in high school. When you guys are studying and you're trying to get your SAT to get into a good school, I know students who have gone to junior colleges and they've done really well and they've gone on to careers in medicine, and I know people who've gone on to colleges, local schools, Ivy League schools, and they've all made it. So that, to me, doesn't make a difference. But what does make a difference in whatever, and some of these principles apply to whatever you decide to go into. If you really want to do something, if your heart is really after that, go after it. And don't let anybody tell you no. I was never the smartest, but if I wanted something, if I wanted to get a grade, I knew I had to get a grade or I needed to score on the test, I would go and I would just do everything that I need to get it. And nobody's gonna stand in my way and nobody's gonna tell me no. My friends I went to UC Irvine for college, my friends will tell you. When we were in the Quiet Study Center, it says UC Irvine Quiet Study Center. People would come in there and they would talk. I would very politely but firmly say, it says quiet study center. If you want to talk, please leave. It didn't matter if I knew the people or not, because I was on a mission. I knew I needed to get good grades, and I needed to study for certain tests, and I'll tell you about some of those tests you have to take. They're standardized tests that you need to score a decent score on so that you can go to a good school, okay? So first thing is, if you really want to do something, you don't take no for an answer, and it can take a lot of work, but if you really want it, then you're going to sacrifice your time a little bit. You're going to sacrifice sometimes some things having fun. You know, there are times, but you can still balance it and have fun, but you need to go after what your heart is really seeking, and don't give up, okay? The other thing is, I was just like you, just like Uncle Samir said. Where'd he go? Just like he said, yeah, I was just like you. I'm no different than you. If I was able to do it, you can do it too. Another thing that I'll say is, when you grow up, when you're in a position, we have to help each other out. When you see successful communities, I didn't get to where I was, to where I am, or where I was, or whatever, because I did it all by myself. There's a lot of people I relied on. There's a lot of people who helped me. So if we do that for each other, instead of some people trying to compete and put each other down, that's not only not Christian, but it's not productive, and we're not going to succeed. So when you guys are interested, my office is in Long Beach. If anybody wants to come and see what it's like to do primary care in an outpatient setting, you're more than welcome. I think almost every day that I'm there, I have a student with me, a nurse practitioner student, a PA student, college student, medical student. There's always someone with me. So I don't mind that. I'm happy to do it, and my patients don't mind. So you can see what it's like. The other general things I want to just go over, they're kind of boring, but they're important. So, you know, your grades in high school and your SAT scores, is there any other test? ACT, I didn't take that, sorry, I'm old, so it's different. But those kind of scores, what they do, some of the colleges, what they do is they'll look at your score and your GPA. And if you have your GPAs like kind of down here, then your score on that test better be way the heck up here. Other people know college admissions better than me. But in general, that's kind of a rule, okay? So you want to maximize your chances both on your grades and the standardized test. In college, I felt more pressure in college actually than I did in medical school. I went to UC Irvine, and you have to take this test called the Medical College Admissions Test. We call it the MCAT. And it's chemistry and physics, biology and organic chemistry, and then there was another section that's like verbal. So verbal is reading and reading paragraphs, answering questions, reading comprehension, right? So why do you think a doctor should have to be tested on that? Anybody have any idea? I think they needed coffee, Uncle Samir. Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah, exactly. So that's one thing, is there's a lot of reading. You're always going to be reading. You're going to be reading medical journals. You're going to be communicating with people. You have to write your notes. Every time you see a patient, you have to write a note. In public health, you have to write papers that you get published. So if you don't know how to read and write, you're not going to advance in your career. And you can get sued. You can have all kinds of things that can go wrong if you're not reading and writing and communicating clearly with your patient, with colleagues, and also the best doctors that I've found are people who are well-rounded, people who have other interests. The ones that go in as a robot and they're just looking at you like, you know, good doctors treat people. They don't treat diseases. So some people just focus on a disease. They go, oh, you have a cold, so I'm treating you for the cold. And they don't really care about the person. People will tell you when they know that you care, they can tell. And that's going to be oftentimes the difference between an okay doctor and a doctor that they really love. So whatever it is that you're doing, for me, when I see a patient, it's service. Like, I don't have as much time to do Sunday school as I used to. So that's my service. So I had actually, I'll share something kind of personal. There was a Muslim student who was with me, And she said, that patient was so rude. They were so mean. Why did you let them do that? And I said, because this is service, you know? And she said, well, yeah, I mean, every religion's kind of the same. And I said, no, my faith is the only one that has, you know, God came down and he died. There's no other religion where someone came down and their God came and went through everything that they went through. And she said, I don't understand. Why would your God do that? And I said, it's love. You know, it's love. So if he can put up with that, then I can put up with someone being a little rude. And besides, you know, the patient comes in, they're sick, they're in pain, they're not going to be behaving very well. Sometimes when we're in a bad mood, you guys don't have any bad moods, do you? All of us go through bad moods. We're in pain, we're scared. I can't tell you how many times people come into my office and they look so scared and their blood pressure is really high. And I say, what's wrong? You know, well, I saw this one lab value that looked wrong and I read and I Googled and it means that I have this cancer and this. And then I have this mug that I pull out and it says, somebody bought it for me. It says, don't confuse your Google search for my MD. So I tell them, relax. It's not that serious. It's actually, most of the time, it's nothing. So in medical practice, I want to tell you a little bit, when you get to medical school, once you get that MCAT, you get a good score, and you have good grades, hopefully, then it kind of doesn't matter for medicine. It's different than like if you go to law school or something, it matters. Like you need to go to a higher level school. For medicine, it doesn't really matter, to be honest. Any medical school in the country, you're going to get good training. And then the other thing is when you're in college, I tell my nieces and nephews who are in college, there's usually tricks to the tests. It's not, you don't get a good score because you know everything on the test. Some people do. Some people are just really brilliant and they just know everything, and so the test is just easy for them. I wasn't one of those people, and 90% of the people were not. So usually, you can find like tutors, you can find study groups. There's different people on campus that they'll have old tests, and it's legal. It's not like they're cheating, but they'll have old tests and they'll say, this professor has these tests and these are the questions they like to ask. So you focus on the stuff that you need to know for the test. In medical school, you're gonna be studying anywhere from 4 to 8 hours a day. So after you're done with your classes, it's going to be something like that. There's a lot of memorization. There's a lot of thinking. And so you can't just say, you know, I'm going to study a couple hours or I'm going to study half an hour. It doesn't work that way. The way to get through all of that information when you have to memorize every single bone in the body and every single muscle, every single nerve and artery is repetition. You have to look at it and understand it. And you have to listen closely in the lecture, and you have to listen as soon as you're done with lecture. I would always say it's good to review whatever you heard in that lecture because it reinforces what you just heard. So like you'll remember it longer, and then when it comes time to study for the test, you don't have to spend as much time studying for it. So those are kind of the boring sort of things, mechanical details. After medical school, depending on which specialty you go into, you have to do training. So the training, you're going to be in the hospital. They had to make rules on how long we could work because we would work sometimes 120 to 130 hours a week. So do the math, figure out what that means. So I'll give you an example. So some weeks, I started off as a surgeon. So some weeks I would go to the hospital, I would go Monday, I would leave Saturday at noon, and I would sleep about 12 hours from Monday until Saturday. To the point that on Friday, I remember, or Thursday actually, I would start having hallucinations. I'm not kidding. Like you would see things floating, like the chair would be moving. And then I'd be sitting there and then I'd go, okay. And I'd look again and I would have to say chair in my head. Chair, go back down. I'm not kidding. And I'm taking care of patients. So it was a dumb system. And then they would, then they made rules that you have to spend only 80 hours a week in the hospital, which is still a lot, but you're able to go home and sleep a little bit. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm really not. But I want you to understand what you're getting into. Surgery is probably one of the toughest residencies too. Yeah, Uncle Samir. Yeah. Yeah. So insurance is very real. So what he's talking about is there's insurance, and the patients come in and they say, here's my insurance. It's too expensive to pay for doctor bills outside of insurance. The best, the highest paid specialties are things like ophthalmology, orthopedic surgery, urology, specialty surgeons, dermatology, radiology. These are a lot of the different ones. Radiologists, my friend, they love their careers because they have set hours. They go in, they leave at this time. If you're a surgeon, you're going to be on call. If someone gets into a car accident and you have to do a surgery on their eye, you have to go in and do it. So there's different fields. Those are going to require higher grades when you're in medical school and higher test scores because they're competitive. They're really competitive. I'm going to tell you a couple. I've gone through surgery. I didn't go through surgery. I did a couple years. I didn't want to finish because I just didn't feel like it was my calling. It wasn't my passion. And if you want to do something like surgery and you're spending 16 hours a day in the hospital, you'd better really love it. Otherwise, it's going to be really tiring. And then I went into something called public health and preventive medicine. Most doctors have never heard of preventive medicine. They don't know what that means. So I worked at the Centers for Disease Control in Atlanta, and we used to get sent all over the world to investigate disease outbreaks. So that's public health, a simple way, a really, really oversimplified way of saying what public health is about. It's looking at the population, like the whole group of people. It's COVID. COVID was a great example, right? Is making sure how do we keep people from getting other people sick. So, and then clinical medicine is I'm taking care of one person. I'm in a room, it's private, nobody else can hear, and I'm focusing on that one patient. I'm not thinking about the whole group of people. Over time, like Dr. Samir said, I worked in the jail, LA County Jail. I was doing all the infectious diseases for, overseeing the infectious diseases for the jail. So all kinds of crazy stories and crazy things that I saw. I was doing more and more patient care, and this is something, I worked for the county of Los Angeles, and they kind of weren't letting me do my job. I was trying to do a lot of big projects and research, and they said, no, you're making too much work for us, we're gonna get sued. So I started doing more patient care, just taking care of patients, and that's how I ended up working in primary care, which means the doctor who takes care of your primary care needs. And my focus is on prevention. So when I see a patient, I'll say, okay, I want to help you to get off of medicine instead of just always writing prescriptions. You have this disease, here, let me give you this. You have this other disease, I'll give you these 3 medicines, each one's for one thing. I don't like that approach. It's necessary in some cases, but I like to help people get off of medicine. So I think I went a little over. What questions do you guys have? I tried to cover all the basic things so you get an idea, but what things do you want to know? Yeah, Uncle Samir.
We'll have a special room for...
Oh, okay. Okay, so I should just be quiet?
If somebody has a general question, you can ask Dr. Malik.
Yeah. I wanted to, because I have to go, my kid has a soccer game and it's her last game, so I'm sorry that I have to go, I gotta see her game. But I wanted to make sure you guys understand that there's different specialties. You know, Dr. Henry's got different specialties, he'll tell you different things. Hi, Henry. And one other thing that I think is important, there are great opportunities to serve, not just one-on-one with your patient, but and you can do this, I've gone to Bolivia, I've gone to Zambia, we have churches there, and we're able to go on mission trips and serve the people there. They're standing barefoot, there's like a line of people around the building, and they're standing barefoot in dirt, just to come see a doctor. So there are really good opportunities to serve. There's a clinic at Christ the Good Shepherd now. I haven't had a chance to go yet, but that's on Saturdays. If you guys know, they help a lot of the homeless in Long Beach. So there's different ways, and you can serve in any one of your careers. So don't let anyone tell you that you have to be a doctor or a veterinarian or like in the health field to serve. But these are some specific opportunities that we get to serve, to volunteer our time. And people come up to you all the time, whether you like it or not, and they'll say, I have this hurts or this, or, you know, and then, and that's a chance where you're tired. You don't really want to hear it, to be honest. You don't, right? I mean, you don't want to hear it. You're like, I turned my brain off, I'm tired. But that's a time where you just say, okay, you know what? This person has this question, let me see if I can help them out. So it's being open to service and being available, whatever career that you guys do. Any other specific questions about the different things that I've done that I might be able to answer? Sorry, I put them to sleep. Sorry, you guys.
All right, so next is going to be Dr. Nardine Surur. Are you still go with Surur? It's okay. It's better. Sorry, Bishu. She is Tant Amal's daughter, if you remember Tant Amal. She's sitting in the back there. Again, one of my babies, but I'm so proud of her. So she's a pharmacist, and she's going to tell you a little bit about pharmacy. And then again, afterward, we have another pharmacist, Myrna, to answer the question in the room afterward, okay?
Good morning, everyone. Okay, so I'll start a little bit by saying what I did, where I went to undergrad, pharmacy school. So I went to UCI for college, and then from there I went to the University of Colorado in Denver for pharmacy school. There's different options for pharmacy school. It's kind of cool. When you graduate high school, there are certain programs that you can do undergrad and pharmacy school together. Those programs are like 5 or 6 years. So Chapman University has a program like that. And pharmacy school itself can be 3 to 4 years. So it's nice that, you know, you can finish high school and within 5 to 6 years, you can go out and be a pharmacist. Let's see, what else did Uncle Samir want us to say? Some of the requirements for pharmacy school, you need to do the general biology, chemistry, physics, and then there is a admissions test like the MCAT called the PCAT, and that is required for pharmacy schools outside of California. So similar to what he said, if your GPA is high and your PCAT's low, they kind of look at both of those things, and then they also look at any extracurricular activities you do. So it's important when you're in college and even high school to join different clubs and do different things that show you're a well-rounded candidate so that you can get accepted into pharmacy school. Is it hard to be accepted? You know, of course, we want to encourage to have a good GPA, do those activities, do well on your PCAT so that you can get accepted. There's a lot of schools here in California. I think there's about 11 or 12 pharmacy schools in California, so lots of options if you want to stay in California, but it's also a good experience to leave as well. I didn't necessarily want to leave California, but I had a really good experience in Colorado. So once you graduate, you can go ahead and start your career as a pharmacist. There's lots of different options for pharmacy. Some people do residency, so unlike med school, residency is not a requirement for pharmacy school. These can be 1 or 2 year programs, and essentially you would specialize in specific things. So you could do hospital pharmacy, you could do specialty pharmacy, which is what I currently do. You could do a residency in community pharmacy, which is your retail pharmacist at like Rite Aid or CVS. So the nice thing about pharmacy is that there are lots of different options of things that you can do, and that's kind of why I chose to be a pharmacist. I liked the idea that there were different options for me to do in my career. And also just that pharmacists are really accessible to patients. So if you're sick, you can go into your local CVS and ask a pharmacist, you know, what medication you can take. I'm sure a lot of people have done that before. And I think As the years go on, I think pharmacists will have more of a role in the healthcare setting. I think that there's a need for more general practitioners in the medical field, and pharmacists definitely, with their knowledge of medications, can fill that role. Personally, I really enjoy being a pharmacist. I think kind of like what I said, the accessibility that you can easily ask a question at your local CVS. You kind of really have an effect on a patient and the medications that they're taking, and just making sure that they're getting the best out of their therapy. Any questions for me? Yeah. So I currently do specialty pharmacy. So a lot of those commercials you see late at night on TV, like Enbrel, Humira, Ocrevus. I don't know if any of you have heard these commercials. Ozempic. They always have a catchy slogan. These require a lot more work from a pharmacist. You have to really follow up with your patients, make sure that they're adhering to their medication, making sure that they're taking it properly, making sure that they're not having any side effects of the medication. You can also do hospital pharmacy. So these are pharmacists that are in the hospital. They'll help make recommendations for medications for patients who are in the hospital. They'll adjust the dose based on the patient's like kidney function or liver function. There's pharmacists that do, I know pharmacists that have law degrees as well, and they do more specific pharmacy law. There's just so many different things that you can do, and during your last year of pharmacy school, when you do rotations, you'll get the opportunity to do those different types of pharmacy just to really see what it is you want to do. And if there's something you're interested in, there's definitely, like when you're in pharmacy school, that's really when you figure out like what route you want to take. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, good question. So the question was, what exactly does a pharmacist do? I know a lot of people think that they just count pills behind the counter. We make sure that the medication is appropriate for a patient to take. Is it the right dose? Is it the right medication, the right strength? We make sure that if their kidneys aren't working or their liver isn't working properly, that they are okay to take that medication. And then we go over possible side effects of the medication with the patient. So in retail, it's a little bit more, I would say, basic, very simple. In specialty pharmacy, which is what I do, right now I work at a cancer center, and we go over all the possible side effects of the medication with the patient, which can really be a lot of side effects. And I would say part of a pharmacist's role is making sure they know what to expect with that medication, how to handle the side effects of that medication, and then really making sure that they are taking it correctly so that they get the best out of their treatment. Yes? What is a good GPA in high school? In college? Yeah, 4.0, exactly. Well, yeah, so when you're in high school, I really recommend taking AP classes if you can, taking honors classes, getting your GPA as high as possible. For me, I took a lot of AP classes in high school, and I was actually able to do my undergrad at UCI in 3 years. So I really, really encourage that. And in college, of course, keeping your GPA as high as possible, but also knowing that when you apply to pharmacy school, you have your PCAT as well, that admissions test, and then the extracurricular activities that you do really help. And of course, your personal statement. If you really want to go into pharmacy, you want that to show through your personal statement. Yes. So the question was, do some pharmacists make the medication? Pharmacists do compound medications. So if you get something in the hospital, like an IV, yeah, those medications are made. They're compounded.
Okay. Now we have veterinary medicine. It's not gonna me that will be giving the talk. The freshest of all of them, Dr. Tina Boutros. She just finished, done, ready to go. So she's gonna give you the real life experience. Thank you, Tina.
Okay, I'll just start. Hi guys, we're having technical difficulties, but like my dad said, I just recently graduated, so I can tell you just the basics of just what I have just done in terms of schooling and testing, but he can probably tell you a lot more about like the actual experience of being a vet. Oh, you can't hear me? Okay. Oh, my timeline didn't show up. Okay, well, either way. So first you have to do an undergraduate degree, obviously. You have to get a bachelor's. There are some schools where you don't have to do that, but most of the time you do. When you do your bachelor's, you can major in pretty much whatever you want. A lot of people do major in something like animal sciences, which I would recommend if your school offers it. My school didn't, but animal sciences will help you in the future because you'll look at things like anatomy, so then you'll be more prepared later on. You can also do any science degree, so you could do biology, physics, chemistry, whatever you want. And then lastly, you can do any major. So if you want to go in and do like anthropology, for example, sociology, psychology, whatever, you can do that. You just have to take the prerequisite science classes as well on top of that. And I have a link here. I can send it to whoever wants it. That'll tell you what prerequisites are required for each school in the US, so that way you know. But most of the time, they're basic science classes as well. So after you graduate, and then like Nardine said, there is another option where you can do undergraduate and vet school all combined. So you can do like a program where you do like a 5, 6, or 7-year program and just finish everything at once. If I could go back, that's what I would have done 100% faster, and then you also learn everything you need to know so you're super prepared for vet school when it actually comes. And then second, after that, you go ahead and do something called the GRE. It's basically like the SAT on steroids, so you're doing that. It's like the exact same thing, but it's at post-college. You can also do the MCAT. Some schools accept that, but don't do that. Definitely do the GRE. And then after that, you apply to vet school. There are only 32 vet schools in the entire country, sorry. There are only 32 vet schools in the entire country, so the acceptance rate is like 10 to 15%, but you can totally do it. And then, so after the GRE, you get into vet school. Vet school is most schools are like 2.5 to 3 years of didactic education, which means like classrooms. So you'll be learning from an actual teacher and doing classes and labs and things like that. And then right after that, you'll do either 1.5 to 1 years of clinicals where you're rotating around and doing specific specialties with a specialist for about 2 to 4 weeks each. Then after vet school, you take something called the North American Veterinary Licensing Exam, or the NAVLE. After you take that NAVLE and you get your license and everything, then you're officially a veterinarian. So the future of veterinary medicine right now is really, really bright. There are an insane amount of opportunities. The pay has increased tremendously since the past few years, especially during COVID. There has been just a huge rise in the need for vets. For example, you used to have to take the California state licensing exam as well as the NAVLE, but they canceled that recently because they have such a great need for veterinarians that they just canceled it. So that's great for us. So yeah, if you want to do this career, you're definitely gonna have longevity for the future. A lot of people think that vet med is just like dogs and cats, but there are also so many animals in this world, obviously, and you can specialize and do any of them. So there are some people who just do equine, for example, which are horses. Some people just do like cows, pigs, sheep, and goats. You can also do zoo animals, exotic animals, marine animals, whatever you want. So it's not limited to just one specific thing. Oh my God, all of my graphics didn't show up. Oh well. But as a veterinary general practitioner, small animal, the way that I am, you pretty much, most of your days you're doing all sorts of medicine. So you're doing anesthesiology, you're doing surgery, you're doing radiology. So you pretty much are doing everything. Dentistry, etc. Or you can specialize in one specific field. So if you are just like, I really love cardiology, you can totally do that too. To do a specialty, you have to go ahead and do either 1 year of an internship or like a year of practice in a regular job. And then you do 3 years or 4 years after that of a residency. And then after residency, you'll take an exam. It's like another board's exam, and then you become a board certified specialist. Some people like doing that because it definitely gives you a lot more free time, because your hours, for example, cardiology is one of the ones that their hours are just wonderful. They work from like 8 to 5. They do the same thing over and over and over again. They're just doing echocardiograms all day long, and they become really good at it. And then obviously you can get a pay increase as well if you specialize. And that's it. Does anyone have any questions? The worst animal, pigs. Pigs are really annoying and they scream all the time. Thank you.
Did you hear what she said about the pay? She's giving me a hint how much should I pay her. Now we have Abuna because he has to go, so we'll get him in. Abuna is a CPA. You know what that means? What CP? Certified something, right? He's a certified Abuna. Let me tell you, he didn't want to come to talk about CPA, but he said if somebody interested how to be Abuna, I can help him out. So CPA is a certified public accountant, okay? So we're happy to have him, and thank you.
So before, I was a priest, obviously I had a career, I had a job. I studied accounting in undergrad, and I didn't, go on to do a master's or anything beyond that. When you study accounting, there are typical jobs that people try to land entry level. Most people think of like tax. But there are lots of other things that you could start out doing. Accounting, when you start out your career, it's a lot of work, it's a lot of hours. and pay is entry level. But the more you grow in the profession, the more different types of work opportunities open up. I'm not sure how it is with other business majors. Accounting is one of the business majors, but different career paths don't open up at the very beginning. So accounting is one of those professions where you want to get some very solid experience as early on as possible. And you really want to start with your, college courses, doing well in them, so that your GPA could be good enough to try to land an internship, which would really help the possibility of landing a good, solid job right at the beginning of your career. So that helps a lot. Otherwise, when you start out your career, it could take a while to kind of land those jobs that you really want to. But typical accounting jobs involve tax, financial statement related things, which could lead into auditing. I ended up taking that audit path where I was working for some small firms. A firm is basically a company that offers accounting services. So when you hear the word firm, it could be talking about any kind of profession. When I'm talking about accounting, I'm talking about it's a company that has clients, which could be individuals or businesses, and you're doing accounting services for those individuals or businesses. And an auditor, basically what an auditor does is it basically just checks to see that whoever it is that they're auditing is doing what they should be doing. It's kind of like, my son said, he picked up all of his toys in his room, and when I go and check his room, that's me basically auditing his room to see that he actually picked up the toys that he said he would. That's probably a very basic example of that. And then I ended up actually becoming an internal auditor, which is what I was for most of my career, which is where you're working for like a corporation and you're doing audit services within the corporation. And then my last job was with Amazon, where I was doing risk and compliance. And that was the part of my career where I started to really take a new direction, because I had done a lot of that foundational stuff for most of my career up until that point. And then I became a priest. So that was my favorite job, and it didn't last for very long. Does anybody have any questions? So, in my opinion, the future of the career is one where if you, like I said, you kind of have a foundational start to it in terms of working, really like accounting-based jobs. Because what accounting is, it's kind of like understanding the financial position of a company. It's kind of like the language of business, some people say. And if you stick with that for a while, lots of opportunities open up. But just like any profession, they don't just open up because you decided to become an accountant. They open up because you're working really hard and you're constantly seeking better work opportunities, just like any career. I don't think anybody's going to stand up here and say, this is one career where you can make a lot of money, you don't have to do very much work. There's no such thing as that. Any career is going to require you to work really hard, and you shouldn't be afraid of that, because all of you are capable of being successful and working really hard. Sorry, does anybody have any other questions? Yes, Anka. How do they audit a business? How often? So it could be, who's they? So it could be like the IRS, for example. Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question because I didn't take that route in my career. And so that's a very good question, because it tells you that there are lots of different routes you can take as an accountant. Most people think accounting, bookkeeping, IRS, tax, working for the government, and getting people in jail or not, hopefully, So I didn't take that route, but the government obviously has accountants who are working in tax from kind of the legal side of who you're reporting your taxes to. Does that sound really exciting? Yeah. If you have an interest in something, then you should pursue it and pray about it as much as you can. Accounting is one of those things where I do not recommend you do it if you have no interest in it. Like we might as well put an icon of you in church if you decide to do that, because you're going to be such a sacrificed person. Anyways, anybody else? Yes. Yes. Yeah, that's an excellent point. There are people who double major or combine different majors throughout their academic career to achieve certain purposes. Some people, when they go to medical school, I don't know how it is now, but at least at the time when I was in college, will major in something completely out there in their undergrad, just to kind of just to stand out. You know, so my cousin, he's an anesthesiologist and he studied economics in undergrad. And you know, he did that strategically. Some people want to be tax attorneys. They want to end up going to law school, but in their undergrad, they start, you know, maybe studying business. They double major in certain things, or they end up getting like a master's, like an MBA, in addition to like a law degree. So that's an excellent point. Yes, thank you. Sure, you can move into that route. You could study accounting, and even at the beginning of your career, you could start out something very finance related. I think the most obvious major in your undergrad, if you want to end up doing baking, is finance. But you could also do accounting. I believe at one point, I don't know how it is now, UCLA's accounting program was not called accounting. You know, it may have been combined with other business disciplines. So, you know, somebody who wants to go into banking, you could major in general business. I'm sure you can major in any of the businesses and find something. Accounting now, when it comes to big corporations, has a lot of, they find value in people who have IT related majors under their belt, or IT related experience. And so business is now extremely connected to IT, technology, etc. these days. And it'll continue to be that way forever, I think. Yes? It's hard to sum up in just a couple sentences. Banking is an industry, and accounting is something that is common with any business. So it's kind of like saying, like, what's the difference between, well, whatever. You know, so banking, you know, banking is an industry. The banking industry is different than, you know, energy. It's just an industry. But every company functions with their finances, and those finances are maintained by accountants. The records of those, yeah. Yeah, for sure. And accountants, accounting firms need bankers. Any business needs a banker, any business needs an accountant. And the owner of a business could do their own accounting. It's something that anybody could learn. And the more you, the more complex your business is, the more you need a specialist, which would be, you know, like an accountant or a CPA. So a CPA, sorry, I didn't even talk about that. A CPA is a license that allows you to perform certain functions that only CPAs could do. And then also it's just something, anything that you could put on your resume. CPA is an extremely difficult exam to pass, and it you know, requires a couple of years of experience to be qualified to actually get the license. That's something that makes you stand out among other people. Anything else? Nothing? I don't blame you.
Thank you. Okay, now we have Dr. Mark Saad as a dentist, another one of my kids. Allah. I know Mark before he was even born. That's amazing.
That's how far back we go. Thank you. It's kind of hard to follow all these other professions that gave such great speeches, but here I am to speak to you guys a little bit about dentistry. I'll try to keep it simple. Are most of you in high school? Anybody here in middle school? And those that are in high school, what grade are you in? 10? Okay, great. So I'll start by talking a little bit about dentistry, what is the profession, and then we can talk a little bit about the path that it takes to get there. And just like with any profession, it's not the easiest path, but everybody can attain and achieve what they put their time into. So dentistry is essentially the study of maintaining the health in the mouth. So we're talking about your teeth, we're talking about the gum tissue, we're talking about your cheeks, we're talking about the bone in the mouth, we're talking about any surrounding structures that have to do with your mouth. For the most part, we are responsible for anything really to do with the head and the neck as well. So that's essentially the basics of dentistry. Now, why do I love dentistry so much and why did I get into it? Because first of all, aside from you being a medical professional, you are an architect, you're an artist, you're a digital designer. There's all these new things that are being applied to the field of dentistry. And to give you an idea, you're an artist because people will come into your office and they want to say, hey, I want to fix my smile. And you have to be able to become an artist and a visionary to see where they are now and come up with an outcome that will make them happy in the end. You're an architect because you have to plan and sequence the planning of what they're trying to achieve for, say, their smile or their mouth, and you know, give them what's going to make them happy, but also something that's going to last a very long time. Now, I said digital designer as well because dentistry is getting involved with a lot of technology. It's constantly changing, constantly evolving. When I was in dental school, a lot of what we did was still analog, meaning you're taking an impression with ooey gooey stuff in the mouth and your patient's gagging and all these things. And now we do a lot of digital scanning. So we have, you know, cameras and we're scanning the mouth. You can see it on a screen. You can manipulate it. You can design. There's softwares that now that allow you to design a mouth and 3D print. You can 3D print, you know, porcelain ceramics. You can 3D print dentures. You can 3D print so many different things. So technology is a huge aspect that has to do with dentistry. So when you become a dentist, you don't just become a person that's going to fix teeth. You become all those other professions in one. So it's very rewarding. It allows you to constantly be thinking outside of the box. You know, you're not just stuck doing the same thing over and over again unless you choose to specialize. In that instance, you might be stuck doing the same thing every single day. So that's essentially a little bit about what dentistry is. And the path it takes is similar to a lot of the other medical professionals' careers. I personally went to UC Irvine for undergrad, and just like Nardine, I also graduated in 3 years, and part of that has to do with taking your AP classes in high school. And with these AP classes, they are essentially college classes that you take in high school. They are a little tougher, but it's still something that each and every single one of you can take and achieve and pass and do well. When you take those classes in high school, you also take an exam at the end, and if you pass that exam, it counts as credit towards a college that you're going to, and sometimes that eliminates you from having to take those classes in college. For instance, I took a couple of AP math classes in high school, passed the exam, and I didn't have to take those classes in college. So that frees up more time for you in college to focus on other things, take other classes, so forth and whatnot. So Also, when you're in college, I like to say with dentistry, biology is obviously, being a bio major is the straightforward path to getting into dental school. Would I say it's absolutely required to be a bio major? I would say no. And I would say no based on my experience with all my interviews at the dental schools. Just like Nardine had said, you need to be a well-rounded person. Grades are important, GPA is important, all those things need to be high. But when you go to dental school and you hear about all the interviews and even my own experiences, they're not so focused only on your grades. They're not also only focused on your GPA. Those are very important, but they want to see someone that's personable, someone that can communicate, someone that has a life outside of study. Whether that includes shadowing, a dentist or a pharmacist or someone in medicine, or doing something in your community, or doing something with the church, or you're involved with sports, or you're involved with art, or you're doing things outside of just study. They want to be able to see someone that can multitask, someone that has other passions, but still wants to focus on this one thing. And that's kind of my take in terms of my experience with dental school interviews. And whatnot. For instance, I grew up playing tennis. That was my passion. I spent tons of time doing tennis. I did feeding the homeless with the church. I went on trips in college that allowed us to get exposure to medicine, pharmacy, and dentistry. All these things are things you put in your resume, that you put it into your what do you call it when you're applying to college? Your applications for college. That way they can see that you're not just sitting at home, studying, getting good grades, and that's it. Dentistry, there's a lot of communication that has to do with dentistry in terms of how you speak with your patients. A lot of it is very important because that's how a patient will trust you. Unfortunately, in dentistry, some of it can become more of a sales pitch, but there's different ways of doing it, right? There's so many dentists. That's the other thing. There's a lot of dentists in California, a lot in Orange County and LA. Where I work right now, there's 6 other dentists in my own building. If you're not a personable person, you don't know how to get on their level and speak to a patient and understand what they're looking for, they'll walk out and go into the next. Not to scare you, but that's, that's kind of where that leads. Now, in terms of the career, what can you do after? Well, there's a lot of different specialties. I'm a general dentist, so I don't specialize in one thing. I do all aspects of dentistry. The beauty of that is you get to pick and choose what you want to do. There's some aspects of dentistry some people don't like doing, they don't enjoy, and they avoid it. And there's other aspects that people love to do and they want to focus on. I personally like to do all aspects of dentistry. I find it very rewarding, and it keeps my hands going in different, doing different things, and it allows me to not be constantly doing the same thing over and over again. I don't like repetition. I like to be challenged. I like to create different things for different patients. So, what else would you like to know, Uncle Samir? So aside from general dentistry, there's other specialties. You can become a periodontist. A periodontist focuses on the gum tissue and implants and things like that. So you're focusing on gum disease, bone loss, those things. An endodontist is another specialty that is a person that specializes in root canals. So if you ever get an infection of your nerve in the tooth, they clean out the nerves and they fill it, and that's what an endodontist does. There's oral surgeons. Oral surgeons can go 2 different ways. They can either be a dentist or they can be an MD and a dentist. So you can go to medical school and dental school, and you become an maxillofacial surgeon. And they specialize essentially, they can do trauma, like gunshot wounds, reconstruct a mouth from metal, titanium. There's a lot of different aspects in that. There is, what other specialties are there? There's a prosthodontist. They focus on essentially cosmetics such as ceramic crowns and creating smiles and things like that. So there's definitely different career choices. I personally didn't want to focus on one. I like doing all of them, so I chose not to specialize. If you do choose to specialize, those specialties are an additional 2 to 4 years after dental school. Dental school is 4 years. So you go to undergrad for 4 years, apply to school, you take a test called the DAT, just like the MCAT, just like the PCAT, and you apply, you get into dental school, and you do 4 years. After that, if you want to specialize, you apply to residency schools. If not, you become a general dentist, you get your license, and you practice that way. What can you do as a dentist after? I mean, you can work for a person if that's what you choose to do. So I recommend doing that for a couple years. I did it for about a year and a half, and then I decided to purchase my own practice. The sky is the limit in terms of compensation. You know, I know doctors that are dentists that, you know, you can make millions. You can also choose to make 100,000. You know, it's a rewarding career. You do have to work hard in it. You do have to have dedication and passion for it and be constantly learning. You know, once you become a dentist, you don't stop learning. It doesn't stop. I take courses constantly. I've already taken 3 courses this year. I have another probably 4 planned, and I already have 2 planned next year. We're just starting this year, and I already have 2 planned for next year. So you're constantly learning because the field is constantly changing and adapting, and technology is changing, and the science and research behind what we do is constantly changing and adapting. So it never stops, but it's a good thing. The more you get into it, the more you learn, the more you get involved, the more fun the career actually becomes, to be honest. The less you learn and you just become a dentist and you end up working in an office and you just fix teeth, you're gonna get bored. That's the honest truth. You're gonna get bored with it. And believe me, you don't wanna be bored with it. So learning is definitely a huge aspect. It does not stop once you're graduated. It continues throughout your entire career, if you choose to. Anything else you would like to know? Does anybody else have questions? Yes. How long did it take me? So I purchased an existing practice. So I might be a little different case. Part of why I got into dentistry was because it gave you the freedom to be able to purchase and have your own practice. I was someone that wanted my own business, but I also wanted a career that was stable and a career that allowed me a little bit of freedom in terms of what I wanted to do, and dentistry was that. You know, I liked, you know, growing up, I liked fixing cars, I liked being, you know, a visionary, I liked, you know, imagining things and making it come to life, and dentistry was a lot of that. You know, I didn't know I wanted to be a dentist. My sister wanted to be a dentist, she is a dentist. My cousin's a dentist, I have 2 other cousins that are dentists. I kind of followed in my sister's footsteps, but one of the biggest things for me was going on a medical trip in undergrad at UCI. We went to Panama, and it exposed you to medicine, pharmacy, and dentistry. On that trip is when I immediately found my passion. Well, I can't say passion, I didn't know yet really, but found that dentistry was really more in tune with what I wanted to do with my life. So it took me a year and a half after I graduated dental school to purchase my own office. I knew I wanted to do that, and I pursued it. I really started looking 6 months after. It just took me another year to be able to find the right practice. You have to know what you're looking for, you have to know what you want, you have to know what type of practice it is. Not every practice is the same. You know, some practices are highly cosmetic practices, other practices are focused on implants. You know, you have to know what you're getting into, and when you get into that stage, you'll have more guidance in terms of knowing what you want and what you enjoy in dentistry and what you're looking for in a practice. Any other questions? Nobody? Anybody? Going once? Twice? Forever hold your peace? Perfect.
So now we have 2 more to go. And ladies first, so we're going to go with Miss Christy Marcos. She's a lawyer. Sometimes she's a liar. I don't know. Another one of my kids. Let me tell you something about Christy. When she was like 4th grader, she came to me in the basement of Archangel Michael, said, Uncle Samir, I want to take your job. I thought she wants to be a vet. So she goes, do you want to be a vet? She goes, no, I want to be Amin Khidma like you. She never did. She doesn't even serve, so tell her to come back and serve. She is busy, but yeah. Okay, so, and then we'll save the last the best for last with engineering, and then we will go to the room, but let's finish with Christy first.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. So I'll try not to talk too much. I know we have a reputation for talking a lot as lawyers, but I'm going to start actually by just talking a little bit about what the law is and what the legal profession is, and then we'll get into how much you have to study and all of that. I know for most people, the average person, you don't really come across lawyers on a regular day basis. It's not like going to see your doctor every year or your dentist or going to your local pharmacist. So for most people, we don't really get exposure to lawyers. And yet, I would say the law is something that touches our lives every single day in so many different ways without us even realizing it. So even your ability to get from point A to point B, right? You're in your car. You have to follow the speed limit. You can only go when the light is green. You have to stop when the light is red. All of that is governed by the laws. And then even on a more macro level, you know, the products that you're able to buy in the stores, the policies that we have, all of that is governed by laws that are made by various policymakers in DC. And I say all of that to just explain that the field is very broad. So when you're a lawyer, you can do all sorts of different types of things. It's not just what you see on TV. It's not just standing up in court or doing trial work. And we can go into a little bit more detail on that if you guys have questions. But I guess I would start by saying that as a lawyer, your job is not necessarily to know what all of the different laws are. Your job is to really provide a service to your client. You'll get clients from all sorts of walks of life who have all sorts of different types of problems. And the skills that you learn as a lawyer are really just how to think. It changes the way that you think and the way that you analyze problems. And it teaches you to be a problem solver for your clients. And so within that, there's lots of different specialties. There are criminal lawyers, which I think a lot of us are probably the most familiar with from what we see on TV, right? Someone commits murder, they go to jail, right? They have to go to court and be put on trial. You'll have a lawyer that's defending the person that's accused to make sure that they get a fair trial, that the evidence actually shows that they're guilty. And then you'll have lawyers that represent the government that are actually trying to put that person in jail. And those lawyers have to represent not just the victim, but they represent the government and the laws of the state. There are lawyers who do civil practice, and what civil practice is really governs a lot of different things. You could be a family lawyer, you could be a lawyer for people who get into accidents, personal injury, those are really common. You could be a lawyer, an immigration lawyer, help people who are trying to get legal status. You can be a lawyer that represents companies, either as outside counsel or in-house, so you work for one company. I think Abuna mentioned he worked for Amazon, so Amazon's a massive company. They have accountants. They also have in-house legal teams, meaning lawyers that they only work for that one client, and they represent them in all sorts of matters, whether it's litigation, whether it's business deals, or regulation, advocating on behalf of the company to the government to make sure that they don't get fined for doing certain things or advocating for certain laws. You can also work in a more government-facing role, meaning that you work in, for example, the state attorney general's office. You can work for the DA's office, district attorney, prosecuting crimes. You can also work in the Department of Justice at the federal level. You can work in various different agencies like the Securities and Exchange Commission, and you can work as a lobbyist. Lobbyists are people who, they don't necessarily represent your average client. They might represent organizations or industry groups, and they go and advocate to lawmakers and policymakers either in Congress or even in state congressional offices to advocate for those congressmen and congresspeople to pass certain laws that favor the company or the organization that they represent. So you can do lots of different things as a lawyer, and it really just depends on kind of where your passion takes you and what you're interested in. And I would say that a lot of that you do learn in law school, but mostly you learn kind of what you want to do from experience. And it's really important to get a lot of practice, either while you're in law school or even before you go to law school. I would say it's super important. Any questions about that so far? So yeah, there's lots of different facets to it. Yeah, go ahead. So family lawyers can do lots of different things. Probably the most common is handling marital dissolution or divorce, so when two parties want to separate. They can also deal with child custody, so if there's children involved, making sure that the child is put in a position where they're, taken care of, that they're safe. You could do a lot of stuff that's related to just literally the division of property between a couple. So there's lots of different things that you could do with family law. Any other questions about certain specialties? Yes. I would say yes, to a certain degree. I know lawyers have a bad rep, but the whole role of the lawyer is to represent people who are oppressed, who are seeking justice, and that is a lot of the service of that what you do as a lawyer is giving voice to someone who does not have a voice, who does not have someone to advocate on their behalf, and Jesus did do a lot of that. And just like any profession, you'll come across people who really are passionate and are doing a wonderful job at representing those folks that need them most, and then you'll also come across people who maybe are not the best examples of what the legal profession is there for. Yes. So it depends. There's lots of different ways that lawyers can get compensated. A lot of lawyers get paid on an hourly basis. Some lawyers will get paid a certain fixed fee up front for the whole life of the matter. Some lawyers will work on a contingency, so they'll, represent a case. They won't be taking any upfront cost, but then if they win at trial or they resolve it with a settlement, they'll take a portion of that, and that's how they get paid. So it just depends on the kind of law you practice. And just like I think everyone else here mentioned, there's a huge variety in what you could do. There's some people who make, a couple $100,000 a year, and then there are some people who make millions and millions of dollars a year, just depending on the type of practice that they have and the cases they take. It's very high pressure, and you can have very demanding clients. You have to deal with opposing counsel sometimes, and that's not, it's not for the faint of heart. But I think what I really enjoy about the practice is the fact that it's given me really tough skin. It's changed the way that I think and how to be a better problem solver. Huh? I had to be around you. And so I think it's really valuable because you learn skills that are transferable through all aspects of your life. What you learn to do as a lawyer is something that you can take and you can apply it to pretty much anything. And there's a lot of variety and you get a lot of general knowledge. My personal practice is commercial litigation. So I work for a big firm that has lots of offices, but I work here in Irvine. And we represent different businesses and their disputes, preparing those cases for trial. And I've done lots of different things. I've had cases involving class actions where we're representing a class of different Fortune 500 companies suing over credit card fees. And I've also had cases representing insurance companies. I've had cases representing, right now we're working on a case where we're representing a private charter jet company. So you get to learn a lot of different things. I learned about aviation. I've learned about military warships for a different type of case. So it's kind of cool. You get to be, I'm not really a specialist, but I get to learn about a lot of very niche industries. Yeah. I went to UCLA. Yes. Very good question. So the question is, if you are representing someone who is guilty, or they told you that they're guilty of a crime, I'm assuming this is criminal, does the lawyer still represent them? And the answer is yes. If you have a personal opposition to something, you don't have to necessarily represent them, but the role of the attorney is to make sure that their client gets a full and fair defense under the law, meaning that the other side has to prove their case, and they have to prove that they actually did commit the crime and convince the jury that they committed a crime. So it's very unique in that sense, where you are kind of there to make sure that the system works the way that it's supposed to. Any other questions? Yes? Sure, so yeah, we can go into a little bit about the study. So I went to public high school, went to Marina High with Nardine actually. We took AP classes together and cried together and studied really hard together. And I think taking those AP classes was really what set me up, because they're a little bit more rigorous. They teach you, they prepare you for what you need to do to study really hard and to be disciplined. And then I went to UCI, like I think pretty much every other person that's spoken here. Yeah, so I went to UCI because of my IPs. I graduated in 3 years. And then the one nice thing about law school is that you don't need to take any prereqs. So I think for dental and pharmacy and medicine, you have to take at least some certain specific classes in undergrad, like bio and organic chemistry and all that stuff. I was, I guess, a bum and didn't really want to do any of that. So I just took political science. It was something that was really interesting to me. Political science is really the study of government systems and politics. I also took sociology, so a lot of it was, and you can do pretty much anything before law school. You could major in philosophy, you can major in hard sciences if you want to, you can major in economics, you can major in the arts. The one requirement that you need to fulfill for law school is the LSAT, which is just another standardized test that's specific for law schools. And you want to get a pretty high score on that. And you do need to have a relatively high GPA. Again, those things can balance out depending on how you do. But because it's so competitive, it's not enough to just have good grades or a good LSAT score. You do want to be well-rounded, like everyone has said. Like you need to find extracurriculars, things that you're passionate about and that you like to do, and getting work experience. All of those are really helpful for your application to law school, because they look at your full resume, they're looking at you as a full person. And that's kind of like what Mark said at the beginning, is the professionals that really excel in their career and that have really successful careers are the ones who can connect with their clients or their patients on a personal level. And those tend to be the ones who have a very full life, a very well-rounded life, and have other interests besides just their profession, as opposed to someone who is a bookworm and kind of looks at you like a robot and is not really connecting with you. Because there's lots of lawyers in the world, just like there's lots of other professionals. If you don't have a way of connecting with your clients, they're gonna leave and go to someone else. So I would say working really hard in high school is super important, and the earlier that you think about your career and how you want to be successful, the better. But it's not the only way. I think if it's never too late for you to really start to care about what you're doing and to really study hard for those standardized exams and try to do other things and get other experience outside of school, that'll still go a long way towards your applications and getting into a good law school. For law school specifically, I would say, again, there's a lot of variety. There are the Ivy League law schools that are really well known, like Harvard and Stanford, that are very hard to get into. And then there are law schools that people have not really heard of and are not nationally accredited. And you know, they all churn out lawyers, and everyone has to sit and take the bar exam, but that, I think where you go to school does determine a lot of what your options are as a professional. So if you want to do something like working at a big law firm or working for in-house counsel for a Fortune 500 company, or you want to work in government, you need to go to a top tier school. Top tier being like top 20, top 10, top 20, top 30 school to really do well. And also to ensure your chances of actually passing the bar exam. The bar exam in California is especially difficult. I think it's like a 45% pass rate. It's a 2-day exam, so it's also very rigorous, and you want to go to a school that will prepare you for that. Anything else? No? Okay. Oh, yes. Yeah, so I would say first year of law school is probably the most intense, and you're taking about 4 classes a semester, which doesn't sound like very much, but each class is about 2 hours long, and your prep for each of those classes, like for every hour, you want to prep 2 hours, so it's lots of hours of study just for the classes themselves. And our exams, we just had a final exam for every class, so there weren't like, everything basically was writing on your final for that class. That was your whole grade. First year grades are super important. Like, you do not want to screw up your GPA your first year, because that affects the summer internships that you get, and that's kind of what sets you up for success for the rest of your career. So because I did okay my first year, I did well enough that I got a good internship, and I was able to interview for big firms for the following summer. And then by my second summer, I was interning at a big firm, and that's how I got my job offer before I even took the bar exam. So that's kind of, you want to put yourself in a position where you can get a job before you graduate. So you're prepping for your career before you even take your bar exam. And the better focus that you have and discipline that you have while you're in law school, the more likely you are to set yourself up for a good career after you graduate.
You noted that she talks too much? That's one qualification of being a lawyer. So now is Mike and Myrna for engineering. And then I think after that, the rooms, but we only have half an hour to do everything. So let's go.
Okay, I don't know where Yusef is at, so I can't connect the laptop. So I'm just gonna talk. So as many of you guys know, just because I'm the high school servant, you guys all know that I'm an engineer, a civil engineer. Do you guys know what I actually do? What does a civil engineer do, or an engineer in general do? We do the math. I like that answer. As Uncle Samir would say, we do nothing. So he always tells me I do nothing. So as a civil engineer, we plan, design, supervise, operate, maintain any of infrastructure projects and system. There are 6 different fields in civil engineers, and I'm in one of them. So in my job, I'm not a civil engineer, I'm a transportation engineer. So there's structural, construction, geotechnical, transportation, environmental, and I think I missed water resources. So I'm gonna give a really overview of each, what you really need. Structural is really any buildings, any high top buildings, any bridges, towers, dams. That's what structural engineers do. If you're interested in structural engineers, you need to like physics, like math, computers, and think 3D. It's okay, I can just do it because Michael's presentation is bigger. I like yellow. Fun fact, it's my favorite color. Because the vest I wear is yellow. Just so structural engineer, transportation engineer, again, that's me. We design any of the transportation systems, including airplane routes, roads, obviously, bridges, trains, all of this stuff. We control the track. We actually collect data for traffic flows and the highway system and all of this fun stuff. If you're interested in sorry, not structural. If you're interested in transportation, you need to like math. In most of them, you probably need math. I'm gonna tell you something. My brother was a lot way smarter than me in math, and I thought I was so stupid in math. You don't necessarily need to be good at math, you just need a lot of practice. I just did a lot of practice in math, and that's how I really liked engineering. Geotech, they pretty much take whatever materials we use for our foundation and everything and test it and make sure it's good, and then that's what they work on. So geotechnical engineers, they mostly work in labs, so if you're interested in working in a lab, this would be a good career for you if you like geology, if you like the outdoors, and is interested in civil infrastructures. Environmental, they pretty much, environmental's weird because we do work with environmental too, but if you do like environmental, if you're interested in environmental and you have an interest in public health issues and all this stuff, they test water pollution, air pollution, make sure if you are going to construct a project in a certain area that it's compatible and it's good to go and it's not gonna cause any safety issues over there. Water resources, they mainly work with water, pretty much generate clean water for us and all this stuff. You probably learned the water system in your science classes. It's in a bigger scale. Construction engineers, they analyze maps, drawings, blueprint, aerial photography, maps, and perform calculation. So again, if you're interested that you need to like physics, math, computer, and 3D. How do you get there? So when I got into engineering school, it wasn't competitive. So I think I'm gonna be honest, I think I had a GPA of 3.8 something. It was, I'm sorry? Hello? Oh. My high school GPA was like 3.8. I did go to high school with Christy and Nardine. I did not take a lot of AP classes. I know they took a lot of AP classes. I didn't. But again, don't take my word for it because I know it's a lot more competitive now. I got into Cal State Long Beach right after high school. I think most of our engineers here are all in Long Beach. You need, as all the speakers said, you need at least, if you have a lower GPA, at least have a higher SAT scores or ACT scores, or both. And then also look for scholarships to get into schools. It's not, I know Long Beach is a good engineering school. I know Cal Poly Pomona is also a really good engineering school, but if you want to get into Cal Poly Pomona, it's really hard to change your major. So make sure you know that you want to do engineering when you get in there. Letter of recommendation, personal essays, and then once you get into school, you study for 4 years. That's how you get your bachelor's degree. Again, I got my bachelor's degree in civil engineering, but I do work as a transportation engineer. And then before you graduate, the school is gonna tell you need to take an exam called an EIT exam or an FE exam. EIT stands for Engineering and Training or Fundamental Engineering. It's the same exam. You need to take it because it's gonna help you a lot in your career. I know some companies will probably hire you with just your degree, but your EIT will help you a lot. Because later on in your career, especially for civils, I'm not sure about mechanicals, you need something called the PE license, and we have a PE license here, which is Fadi. Can we give him a... I'm saying that because the PE exam is hard. I am working on it, I don't have it yet. It's very hard to get it, but it's very, like if you have it, you're set. So make sure you have it if you want to do engineering. Before you graduate college, make sure you get as many internships as you can. This is how I got my job. Get junior, senior, actually sophomore, don't even wait till junior year. Sophomore year, get an internship. Junior year, get an internship. Senior year, get an internship. Because by the time you graduate, you're set. They're gonna hire you right away. But if you wait till your senior year, or wait till after you graduate and then start looking, they're gonna be like, well, we don't have any experience. I'm not saying it's not doable. You can graduate without an internship and still get a job, but I'm saying it's gonna make your life so much easier. So make sure you get an internship. Make time to get an internship. I know you're gonna be taking a lot of units and saying, I don't have time. No, get an internship after that. And then, benefits. I love my job. I do work from 7 to 4:30, and then I'm done. I think that's why Uncle Samir thinks I don't do anything. From home. Or, okay, so here you have option. You can go in the office, work from home, or hybrid. Do a couple days from home, and then a couple days from the office. It's not typical. I think that happened right after COVID, because they made us work from home, and then, but I'm in the office most of the time, because I choose to be in the office most of the time. I'm in the office and then out in the field. That's the fun, cool part about it too. You get to go out on the field and inspect your projects. So that's one pretty cool thing about it. If you don't want to be stuck behind a desk from 8 to 5, it's a good pay. You start off with, I don't know the average really. I think it's like, I don't want to share that, but okay. It's a good pay, I can tell you that. It's a really good pay. And then there's also 2 routes. After, you can go into the private sector, and then you can get into the public sector. I work for the public sector. Fedi and I actually both work for the public sector. And people say the pay there is not as good as a private, but it's a lot better because there's a lot more benefits working for the public sector. And then also it's a lot more stressful than working for a private sector. So, and the pay isn't that much of a difference, trust me on that, so. And that's it, I'm done. Hold on, I think Michael has he's gonna talk about mechanical real quick, because it's a little different.
ممكن the question will be in the room عشان التايم.
Hey everyone, thanks for having me. Okay, so today we're going to be going over careers in engineering, quick overview, and then we're going to be talking about mechanical and what that can do. So, an engineer is just basically a person who solves problems. There's no specific one thing that engineers do. They do everything from fixing computers to building systems to programming things to using Excel, just you name it, they do it. Here are a couple of types of engineering and their average salaries. And also, it's not showing the projected job growth, but that's something to keep in mind. So, one of the jobs that has the highest growth is industrial engineering. That's 14% growth until 2030. One of the jobs with the lowest is environmental, with only 4%. Yeah, this is median salary. This is mid-career. So you're going to start lower than this, and you can go higher than this, but this is what you're going to be at a couple years in. So each of these sub-engineering fields has fields in itself, where there's sales, there's weapons, there's design, R&D, simulation, testing, quality, manufacturing, and field engineering, each in mechanical, each in civil, each in whatever there may be. So typically jobs that require more study and commitment or risk pay off more. This is true of R&D and design roles. These require a lot more work, and they tend to pay more. So what does it take to be an engineer, and is it a good option for you? Engineering is the highest paying 4-year degree, and I have that underlined actually because it's very rarely a 4-year degree. Most colleges, you will fail some classes, and that's part of the process because nobody's good at everything, and it's a very broad spectrum of classes. So here is a roadmap of the 4 years, and what makes engineering different than law, medical, criminal justice, whatever it may be, is you're taking 97 major units of your 120 college units. What major units means is calculus, thermodynamics, statics, really hard classes. Programming, chemistry, you name it. In college, you have two things. You have GE and you have major units. GE is general education. These are the fun classes. Things like psychology, things like intro to bio, whatever it may be. So most of the classes are going to be more difficult, but you can work right after college. There's no secondary school required. So what will engineering be like in college? It's not always hard to get in. Long Beach actually has like a 64% acceptance rate. Other colleges pretty similar, but the dropout rate is a lot higher than most careers, as you can imagine. It's 50% on average in the US, and even higher in colleges near us. It's very math and physics intensive, so if you're not a fan of math and physics, you're really gonna struggle. There's calculus 1, 2, 3, linear equations, stuff beyond that as well that you're gonna take. So if it's not something you're already interested in, you're gonna have to put in a lot of time. Requires long hours of study. So you guys may know Mina, my friend, but we would prepare for exams by locking ourselves in the library for 12 hours a day and just solve problems over and over and over. And this was a very common occurrence. Highly competitive. You will probably not find a job easily without some internship experience, or at least a master's or something to give you an edge above other people. So I was very lucky. I got a job 3 months after graduating, and I know people who've moved states to find jobs. I know people who've moved countries to find jobs. So the more you're able to prepare yourself, the better. May require summer classes. So this is true of a lot of difficult classes you're gonna have to catch up via summer classes. But engineering is a good bachelor's degree because it can be a very good Swiss Army knife for opportunities. You can go to medical school later, you can go to law school later. If you wanna be an engineer, you have prospects when you graduate. If you wanna do something beyond that, you have that option as well. So what will engineering be like after college? It doesn't slow down. You're gonna be learning every day. You're gonna be learning many, many things every day. And no day is the same as the last. You'll be solving new problems, designing, improving on the latest technologies, so you're gonna have to get caught up to speed on the latest of whatever you're working on. People will come to you and expect you to be able to figure out anything that comes your way, no matter what it is: coding, designing, manufacturing, etc. And most importantly, your network is your net worth. Who you know matters more or equally to what you know. If I've seen people who, straight A students, but they're working dead-end jobs, they're unable to move forward because they can't present their ideas or have a civilized conversation in where they can show what they're thinking. And I've seen people with a bachelor's degree, no specialized training, and they're managers, senior managers making 100, 200K a year. Okay, so my experiences as a mechanical engineer. I've worked in 3 fields: mechanical, biomedical, and aerospace. It's very cool. You guys get to work on just insane things with 1 degree. Mechanical is the most flexible of all of them. You can work in biomedical, aerospace, materials, chemical, etc. Mechanical, got to work on a metal 3D printer. It would make metal parts. Drones, prosthetics, exoskeleton attachments. Worked in biomedical on class 2 and class 3 devices, most notably the heart valve replacement with Edwards Life Sciences. And now I work in aerospace, working satellites and robotics. So this is a day in the life. That is a joke. I don't finish 11:30 p.m., but it's not far from that. You guys will be putting in a lot of time and figuring out problems from beginning to end. And there usually won't be a lot of help besides Google. So Pros and cons. It's really high paying for a 4-year degree. No other 4-year degree will pay you this much, at least off the bat. It's exciting and broad field of work. You can work in cars, you can work on planes, you can work anything you want. There's a lot of room for growth. So you can become a manager, senior manager, probably start your own company if you prefer. And there's a lot of transferable skills. So whatever you learn in one company, you could probably use in another company or another field. Cons, it is a high barrier to entry. So it is a difficult degree to get. There's a very high failure rate, and there's a reason for that. Burnout is very common in the work field. So this is very true, especially for fast-paced places like bio and aerospace. You guys may know like SpaceX. People there don't even know what sleep is. So projects you work on will fail, and it'll be frustrating to fix. Sometimes you'll build a whole system and have to take it apart completely and then re-put it all back together just to see what went wrong. And there's a lot of constraints to work with. So you're given a limited amount of money. It needs to be done by a week from now, and there's technical difficulties that will come up. Questions, comments, concerns?
Okay, thank you, Mike. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming. So now we have more time for you, like about 15, 20 minutes in each room. High school room is engineering because we have like a ton of them today. Too many. Okay, so a lot of engineers are in high school room, and then medicine, vet, pharmacy, there is only one room up front, upstairs on the west side. So we'll give you a chance to do that, and then if you need, the dentist is upstairs. If you need to call your parents to come and pick you up, so assess the time and try to let them know what time you're finishing. But we're planning to finish at 1 o'clock, okay? So let's say, Our Father, who art in heaven, and then you can go to your room, ask any question you want. Finally, Lord, through the intercession of Saint Mary, Archangel Michael, Pope Carolus, and all the saints and martyrs who pleased since the beginning, thank you for this day. Thank you for all the people who made the time for it. Thank you for all your kindness and mercy on us. Forgive us our sin and listen to our prayers when we say, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses. Forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil, and through Christ Jesus our Lord, for thine kingdom, the power and glory forever. So Fadi, Myrna, Michael, Uncle Naguib, Mina, everybody is in.
Can I just say one thing, everybody, for a moment? Can I just say one thing, everyone, for a moment? Can you guys go back for a moment? 1 second. Can you guys go back 1 second? Can you guys go back 1 second? I'm sorry. That was not planned. Sorry. So just like after all of what we heard, all what we learned about today, there's a very important aspect in your life that you're gonna be coming across, where you wanna go somewhere and you would find the route is being hard or different or being rerouted in a different way. So there's a big statement that I wanna make and get you guys to think about it, which is do your part and let him does his part. Do you guys get that? So make sure to do your part, to know, to study, to learn, to like get whatever it takes you to go to that career, but let him does his part too. Thank you guys.
All right, thank you all. So only dentist is upstairs on the west, and the rest are right here, engineering and high school, and then just find the sign. And you can do 2 rooms if you want or more, if you're interested of more than one career. Thank you, guys.
Did you take a nap?
Yes.
I've been looking for you.
Yes.
Why?
I was literally like,
Why?
is there a room for a lawyer?
Yeah.
Just look at the sign. This is medicine. I think lawyer is in outside of the double door.
Hi.
Christy, people are looking for you in the room. Stop talking to Uncle Ramses. Oh, بيقول لك Jesus is a lawyer. No. The only thing that Jesus was not is a veterinarian.
No, he had lots of animals.
هي ماشية؟ اه انت هتمشي؟ خلينا نشوف بقى. كفايه كده بقى. كفايه بقى خليكي حلوه. Oh, no, you don't have to.
There's a key.